A few years ago, open source felt simple. You wrote your codes, you share it with your words, and people like it. They contribute back. But it was slowly, but it was human. Today, everything is different. We are entering in the moment where AI can write codes in seconds, where pull requests are generated fast than they can be reviewed, and where open source projects are scaling faster than ever, but also becoming hard and to maintain and trust. So, and that makes us ask a very important question. What does it really mean to build and scale open source in the age of AI? So that is the conversation that we are having today in Open Source Kigali. So my name is Didas Mbarushimana. I'm a software engineer and lead of Open Source Kigali. Uh, Today I'm inviting Laís, a developer advocate at Pydantic and global voice in developer relations, open source communities, and modern Python system. So, Laís, it's a pleasure to have you today. The stage is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Didas. Hello, everybody. How many people do we have joining us right now? We have
How many people okay, they're joining?
very nice. So, welcome, everyone. My name is Laís, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about scaling open source in the age of AI. Let me see if I can get my slides up. Didas, I think we need to.
Let me see. Okay, you can check it. You can
Wonderful.
see it,
Yes.
right?
Yes, this is perfect. Thank you. Wonderful. So let's dive in then. So if you'd like to have the slides, I have the address over there at the bottom of the where the slides are. You can just go to github.com. LaisBSC is my handle, and Scaling OSS is the name of the repository. You can just grab the slides and follow at home or whatever you're connecting from. I'm just giving you a few seconds so you can actually get the URL correct. And okay, perfect. So let's start. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Didas for inviting and for hosting today, and to the Open Source Kigali. It's a pleasure to be here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about me. So again, I've already been introduced, but just a little bit more detail.
I didn't introduce yourself a lot because I wanted you to present as yourself well. Because you
Wonderful.
have a big portfolio, and I was thinking, like, what can I say exactly?
Oh, good. Oh, good.
All right.
So, in a summarized version, so my name is Laís Carvalho. I'm founding DevRel at Pydantic. As I know, not everybody here is a Python developer. So, Pydantic is the foundational library. It's a Python library for data validation in Python, of course. And that was created back in 2017. And then a few years later, Pydantic went from being an open source tool into becoming a company. And today we have a few other tools, also open source, like Pydantic AI, which is our AI agent framework. But we also have a product. Our product is called Pydantic Logfire, and it's an observability tool. So about myself, I am a very enthusiastic person about observability. I used to work as a site reliability engineer, and I worked as a software developer as well for a while. I'm a big Python community supporter. I've organized a few events and did a few other things for the Python community. I'm going to PyCon US again tomorrow, very excited about it. And that is a picture of me with Guido van Rossum, the creator of Python, at PyCon US last year. Wonderful. So let's go into the talk now. So the frame of the talk today is that, well, AI is accelerating how we build software, but scaling open source today requires more than just code. So we're going to look at state of open source report. We're going to look at a little bit about how AI is changing the way that people generate code for open source and for non-open source as well. The trade-offs between scalability and speed, and what community means in all of that. So, State of Open Source report was a report made by the Open Source Initiative, where they interviewed more than 700 organizations and people that push production code in more than 12 different industries around the world. And again, this is that there on the bottom is a link. You can actually click that if you have the slides and have a look at the actual source. But I'll give you a summary of it. So basically, they have three main findings, which is the world is using open source more and more. There is a 68% year-on-year increase on open source adoption by organizations. There is a lot of energy being used into maintaining open source. And according to the report, there's more energy being used to maintain open source than actually bringing innovation into it. And security and vulnerability management is still one of the main points that is keeping organizations from adopting open source. But still, companies are choosing open source software not because it is cheaper, but because they refused to be locked into a vendor. So the main shift that happened on the latest while is there is much more human engineering hours going into keep things running. So there is a lot of talk about this, the amount of code that is introduced, pushed into open source projects, because now AI is generating most of the code. And well, code used to be quite expensive to produce, but now code is cheap. So we have a massive amount of code being produced, but the tools to review this code are still not that sharp yet. So then that creates a bottleneck where you have a lot of code being pushed, but then to actually go into review and to be merged back into the product, you need a lot of human interaction in the middle. So the the bottleneck now is no longer the code that takes time to be produced, but the amount of attention that is required from human beings to actually review and merge this code. These are some stats on the security part, the finding number 3, which shows that 38% of organizations name that security updates and patches are the biggest challenge with open source software. This is another thing that has been also extrapolated by AI. We have novel models coming into the market that expose a lot of vulnerabilities, and some of them are not even real. There's a lot of hallucination as well into some of the vulnerabilities that are being exposed by using AI. Using AI to expose those vulnerabilities. But so the second largest reason why organizations feel challenged on using open source is installations, upgrades, and configurations. There is another number that is quite interesting to think about, which is 20% of the organizations that have been interviewed don't have any specific process for responding to common vulnerabilities and exposures, which means that when there is a security patch on a open source tool that they're using, they don't have a procedure on how to upgrade those tools onto their code base, so they don't leave a door open for vulnerability to be exploited. Okay, so this is just a little bit of framing, a little bit of context, but let's then dive into what scaling open source actually means today. So I hosted a panel discussion between some folks that have maintained open source for a while and are quite active in the mostly in the Python ecosphere. But I interviewed Guido van Rossum, the creator of Python, uh, Sebastian Ramirez, who is the creator of Fast API, Jeremiah Lowing, who is the creator of FastMCP, and Samuel Colvin, who is the creator of Pydantic and is also my boss. So we had a little bit of a discussion trying to understand what their expertise from maintaining very large open source projects could bring into the table on how to solve some of the problems that open source maintainers are seeing at the moment. Um, so the first thing that we actually spoke about is the cost imbalance. So the as Ashley Wolf, the director of open source programs at GitHub, puts, that the cost of creating has dropped, but the cost of reviewing has not. Of course, this is about code. And some of the things that happened recently that we can use as examples here are the curl maintainer. Curl used to have a bounty program for a very long time, and it was a very healthy and successful one. But end of last year, curl decided to close its bounty program because there were too many AI generated security reports and there wasn't enough time, there wasn't enough bandwidth on their side to actually check those. So it became unsustainable. So they decided to close it. The matplotlib maintainer. So matplotlib is a data visualization, which is very famous in the Python ecosphere as well. Most of my examples are from Python because that's the language that I'm inserted in the community. But they're just examples, and you can extrapolate this into other programming languages. But anyway, so matplotlib maintainer was shamed by a bot. So a bot, an autonomous bot, like an OpenClaw style, made an independent contribution to matplotlib. This maintainer did not like the contribution. It closed the PR, and the bot didn't like that the PR was closed, and it wrote blog posts to shame this person without the person who actually built the bot actually learning about it. So this is a little bit dystopian, but it's a quite interesting example to think about. And then another thing that happened that is quite steering recently is that GitHub now just shipped a feature that allows libraries to disable PRs on repositories completely. So, and this is a flag on something that on a symptom, because up to now, open source was known as this gift economy, where you would create something beautiful, you donate it to the world, and then the world would embrace it and wanted to make it better and gift it and make it better by contributing to it. When you think that now you can think of this thing that you want to make it and gift it to the world, but then you're not going to accept people to actually contribute to it, it's a little bit, it changes the perspective of it. Anyway, so yeah, the noise is not new, but now there is a lot of automated noise created by AI and autonomous bots. As Sebastian Ramirez, then a sentence from Sebastian Ramirez on how things are worse now. He calls it denial of service on distributed denial of service on maintainer attention. That the effort that the person has to make to build those PRs, they're not really relevant, is quite small. but then they push this massive bits of code that takes days to review. It's an imbalance of effort. And he says it's not really of bad intent, because it's it's not really an attack. It's just a lot, and it becomes a lot when there's a lot of people doing it, or a clanker. So the definition: what is a clanker? So a clanker is an autonomous AI agent, and is a derogatory term, but it's usually used to refer to agents that flood repositories with garbage submissions of pull requests. They usually don't follow up to see if the code is actually going to get merged, because their goal is not to merge the code. The goal is just to produce code. And there's a really good article about this, and like the difference of producing code some years ago and now, and how things are changing, from Mario Zechner. He's the creator of Pi, which is an LLM tool. And well, that's the name of the article over there. And I took this image from the article itself. It's a really good article. I recommend. Perfect. So, well, what do we go? Where do we go from here? We know we have a problem. There is a problem. But I mean, what can we do to solve it? Well, I wish it was that simple. Because here, what we actually have is like two sides of the same tool, because AI is nothing but a tool. And so on one side, we have this perspective that we should take advantage of AI and how fast it can write code, and the sheer amount of code that it can produce, and just ship it and grow as fast as it can. And on the other side, on the complete spectrum of it, the complete opposite spectrum of it, we have this idea that, well, if we really do that, if you just merge everything that comes out, there will be bugs, and the user experience is not going to be great, and that your application is not going to be great. There's going to be things that are going to break, and you're not going to necessarily know how to fix them as things scale. So on one side, you have Zechner that asks people to please slow down and read the code, read everything that the AI produces, and go slowly. Produce something that has quality, that is decent, that you're marginally proud of it, but something that is reliable. And then on the other side, you have this other guy called Lopopolo that says that code is a liability. So you should ship as fast as you can, as fast as you can, and as much as you want. And as models get better, we actually automatically kind of shift more towards that side of the spectrum. But the thing here is that we need to understand that this is a spectrum. And from talking to people, I realized that most of us are actually somewhere in the middle, between not really reading everything, but skimming the difference from before and now. Maybe checking one thing here and there, or maybe just, making your very large plans and let AI do its thing, but then check afterwards. Anyway, this is to say, there is a spectrum. And it's interesting for you to also ask yourself, where are you on this? And even more important, where do you want to be on this? Do you think that the goal should be better code and not more code? Or do you think that you should just ship as fast as you can and as much as you can? And that's not a question that you should tell necessarily me about, but it's a question to think about. Then here I'm going to bring you a little bit of perspective, right? So Guido van Rossum, he's the creator of Python. Python, it has been around for, I think, around 30 years. And he says that there has been always, or at least for a very long time, loads of people wanted to contribute to CPython, which is the core language behind Python, which is written in C. There's much more contributions to it than good contributions to it. And the reason why there's a lot of contributions to it is because it looks good for people to say, I contributed to Python, and then put that one liner in their CV. Well, he says that this is similar to everything that has been happening, that the only difference now is that AI makes the volume go larger, but the mechanics are basically the same. So one of the things that they did, and this is an addendum for the people who are maintainers. So one of the things that they did is to establish a few rules on the CPython repository. So if you want to contribute, well, you can use AI tools, but you cannot submit a PR if there is no sign that there is a human involved in it. And they test that. And the way that they test that is they ask the maintainer, the person who submitted a question. And if there is no answer, that pull request then is labeled as pending, and it's automatically closed after 2 weeks, which it makes it harder to fake engagement. And if you are again a maintainer of an open source project and you're thinking about policies and you would like some inspiration on different policies that you can adopt on your project, I added this resource from Melissa Mendonça. It's a repository with a list of all the AI contribution policies for hundreds of tools and libraries. It's all very well separated. It's a really good resource to have. It's quite interesting as well to have a look and see how many people are actually implementing these. Any questions? Let me just see if there's any questions. No questions yet. Okay, amazing. Wonderful. So I then collected a few examples of PRs that we know have been submitted by AI, by clankers in the wild. So Armin Ronasher, who is a very famous person in the Python world, he's created Flask, which is a light version of Django, so a web development framework. And he also created Jinja. Anyway, he created a few really well-known Python tools. And now he owns a company that has developing Pi together with Mario Zechner. So here we have an example of this PR, which tries to add process ID to bash operations exec. But you can see here that this person created a PR that has more than 3,000 files changed and more than 600,000 lines. Think, who is going to review a PR with 600,000 lines? Like, this is crazy. So of course it's automatically closed. This other example is a contribution with more than 1 million lines of code, which is virtually impossible to review. But it has zero context, there's no conversation, they don't tell anybody what they're doing. It's fully autonomous. And well, this is not acceptable. But this is the kind of things that the maintainers are having to deal with at the moment. This is another example of someone that submitted. This is not that many lines, but again, no description, no interaction, no conversation, and all the commits are called, it's just a letter D. So it's very difficult to understand what's being done on each one of those, but it just signals that it's most likely an automated bot. So to deal with these, because this is the exemplification of what Sebastian calls the distributed denial of service on maintainers' attention. Another way that they decided that they could deal with the submissions for this repository would be that every new PR that is open is closed on submission. So you open and it's automatically closed. And then I have a sort of vouching system that decides whether something gets reopened. And if there is no reason to reopen it, it just doesn't get reviewed. And that's it. Um, which seems to be working, but still. Then again, a little bit more perspective. So the FastMCP crowd has tested a few different things, and they have some different opinions on what works and what didn't work for them. So they tried to require an issue to be open before opening a PR, but that didn't work because the issues then got opened a second before the PR was submitted. Then they started to require maintainer interaction, as in having you would need to talk to the maintainer before you actually submit a PR. And what ended up happening is that the number of PRs that was increasing on one side then just moved that to the issues tab. So not really ideal. What worked well for them was to ask people who are submitting PRs to write a short summary of what they did in human voice, no AI involved. And the reason why this worked is because LLMs usually are just extremely verbose. So the rule then became there was kind of something like 10,000 word description for 5 lines of code, not accepted. But a 5-line description for a 10,000 lines of code PR might actually get approved. Well, this doesn't go on for too long, but it's something that you can try and see if it works for you. Samuel Colvin for Pydantic has a proposal, like an idea of something that maybe could work, which is a sort of human and AI identity layer embedded into the contributing system. Like something that would have reputation embedded into it, like a vouching system. So what he was thinking was having a metric on your GitHub profile tracking how sloppy the code that you submit is, so how bad the code is. You spend some reputation points when you open a big PR, and you earn it back when the PR is merged. So it's like putting an actual coin into the gift economy. Anyway, this is, again, just an idea, but it's something to think about, that maybe there could be an automated way of reducing the burden on the maintainer side and still keeping the open source project safe and scalable. The worry with this reputation score is that it can reduce or basically shut down the first-time contributors that, well, don't really have a credit yet. We had an issue like that at Pydantic, and we built a system using Pydantic AI that scores contributors based on their data, the data that they have on GitHub. And we had to do that because we accidentally closed an issue from a legitimate contributor because we didn't recognize that there was actually a person. It's a band-aid into a problem that, well, we don't really have the means to solve it necessarily, because the question that we're actually asking is, how good is this person's code? And we don't really know because it's the first time they contribute. But anyway, this is the tension, and I don't believe anybody really has an answer, but it's, again, something very interesting to think about. There is more research um, by CodeRabbit, which investigated 470 open source PRs and generated a report. So you can, again, when you get the slides, you can just click here. You're going to see a report. And that report says that there's around almost twice as much more issues overall on PRs that are authored by AI. There's 75 more. It's 75% more common to have logic errors on code that are submitted by on AI generated code, and there are almost three times more security issues. The thing about this research is that there isn't really a way that they could guarantee that the PRs they were looking at were really AI generated. So just take this with a little bit of it, as we say around here, with a pinch of salt. Just you know, like I would suggest having a look at the article, but it's something interesting to think about because it doesn't look like we actually trust AI code just yet. So on one side we have that, and then on the other side we have this movement that thinks that we should just kill code review, that it's very hard for humans to keep up, and that we should move the judgment, so the review, up to the plan, not to the diff of the code. That we should be reviewing the intent of what the contributor wants rather than the actual code implementation, because, well, text is easier to read than code. And Sebastian, actually, from FastAPI, actually does this when he creates a PR into someone else's project. He actually adds the prompt that he used to create that, and he puts in a collapsed descriptor in the PR. And he says that his intent is not to show that he's a contributor now because he made an LLM to do something. He wants the problem to be solved. That's the reason why he gives the prompt. So then the maintainer can look at the prompt and say, well, this is good, but the implementation is not good, so I can do it myself. And Guido then says that, well, he wouldn't really look at that detail prompt added to the PR because he would much prefer having the freedom to work with the person and to build a larger code PR rather than reviewing a prompt. So Samuel from Pydantic has a few rules on if you do want to keep pushing AI produced code without necessarily having to review everything. And he has 4 rules for that, and those are the 4 rules that he adopted when he built Monty, which is Pydantic's new open source tool. So first of all, you need to make sure that the internals of the code base are well known to whichever model that you're using to generate the code. And that the external interface is also quite well exposed. So it's easy to understand. It's easy for the model to understand how things work. You need to have a very comprehensive suite of unit tests and make sure that every single bit of code that you produce has unit tests as well. So double down on tests. And you also need to make sure that everything is explicit. So there's no real dispute on what the interface should actually be or do. The more explicit you are, the easier will be for an LLM to generate code for you. And then the example of Monty as well is that, well, Monty is a Python interpreter written in Rust, but still a Python interpreter. So he says that he basically kind of copied the CPython design, which was already quite well defined, um, but he did it on a different implementation of it. So that's the reason why it was easier for an LLM to do. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we do not outsource the thinking. The thinking needs to be ours. The thinking is inherently human. This is Guido talking about how he would prefer, how he doesn't really like really large PRs for something as important as Python, because Python is a huge project that if there is a bug or something is introduced, something is not right, you introduce a bug into a lot of people, into the system of a lot of people. But again, this is another comparison, contrasting argument, because CPython is extremely large, so they want to keep moving quite slowly. On the other side, you have the likes of like OpenClaw or OpenCode. They have a huge code base that hit 1.4 million lines of code in months, which is much more than CPython. And the project has no backwards compatibility, no critical security surface. So it's just, again, and they do generate a bunch of AI generated code and like test it and just push it. But again, just to understand that different project sizes do have and should have different rules. So it's good for you, maintainer, to think about what do you want your project to be when you actually look at these. Because if you want your project to be a tool that people use on the side, there is not really that much of a problem if there is a bug, because you're going to know how to fix the bug, then it might be okay to go a little bit more to the Z side, to the L side of that spectrum. Otherwise, maybe the Z side is a good side for you. In any case, and this is a call and to everybody, please do not submit your AI generated code to someone else to review it. You are responsible for the code your AI prompt creates. And this is not a contribution to an open source tool. This should not be called a contribution. This is madness. Please do not do this. By doing this, by submitting code generated by AI without reviewing it, for someone else to review it as an open source PR, you're actually making the ecosystem worse. So please don't do it. And as we are getting ready to wrap up, I have here a list of things that you can do that are actual contributions, but are much bigger than actually just writing code. So if you are interested on helping an open source project to scale, there are some ways that you can actually do that. You can triage the issues that already exist. You can work on writing better descriptions, on talking to the people that actually want to develop it. Triaging is a great way to be more familiar on how the project works and help. You can have a conversation with the maintainers and ask them what they actually need if you actually want to help. They will know what's necessary because they've been trying to scale, or not, because not everybody's trying to scale, but you get the point. You can also organize events. You can also organize events such as sprints and hackathons, or like meetups like this one, and get people involved and get people to contribute. And this way, the interaction also goes much easier, and it's much faster to actually make a contribution that will be merged and will last. You can try and understand how the project handles security issues and security in general, and you can try to help in that way. You can also work on automations. so maintainers don't actually have to, and that does help scale a lot. And if you do use AI to write PRs and you want to continue contributing by writing code, I would suggest that you please disclose it on the body of the PR. Make the scope of it small and explain what you're trying to do in a very clear way. None of these things that are listed on this slide add mental load to anybody, and all of them help scale the project. And then my last suggestion, which is related to automation, but it's a tool suggestion. It's a tool called CodeSpeed, which helps you measure performance regressions on new PRs. So basically, it runs your new CI, you set it up, and it automatically looks at your PR when you're about to when you open a PR against the code base. It looks at it and it runs a bunch of tests with benchmarks, and it tells you how the performance of it, how the performance of the code that you're introducing affects the. It tells you how the code that you're introducing affects the performance of the library in general. It's another type of automation. But it's a really good one, especially if your project needs to be good on performance terms. And if you want to hear more details about how to do this, there's a very good podcast slash screen recording, live streaming from Talk Python to Me with Samuel, where he goes through it. And it's quite interesting to see, like, to go a little bit more into detail. But here you can see on the screenshot that merging this PR will improve performance by 14% on the library. And this is just a comment on the PR on GitHub. Perfect. So this is everything I wanted to share for today. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. And now thank you, Didas. And now it's time for questions.
Laís Carvalho, developer advocate at Pydantic and Global Voice Developers Relations, right? Open source communities and modern Python systems. So it was a pleasure for me to have you. So as I said again, my name is Didas Mbarushimana. I'm building open source Kigali to connect African developer to global open source ecosystem, because I believe a lot we are not late to this movement. We are early in the AI shift. So Laís, I have a question for you. So I wanted to know if every developer starts with AI assistance from day one. So what do you think becomes the new learning path to building really engineering deep and expertise in open source?
So if a person who is starting uses AI a lot, how can they become a professional software developer? Is that the question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so there are a few tools you can use that don't necessarily just give you the code, but help you walk through what's the problem you're trying to solve. I can think of it right now of Ouroboros, but there are a few other ones. There's the swarm of agents that can do research and try and understand how try and look at different ways that the problem can be solved. There are a lot of tools around that help you think. My suggestion for people that are starting and do want to use and want to learn with AI is that don't let the AI do everything for you. Question it. Look at the code base. Dig around, look for different solutions, read, do some research, but don't be completely dependent on the AI suggestions, because it hallucinates a lot still. And especially when you're learning, it's good to question everything. Yeah, I think this is it.
So yeah, so What do you enjoy most about working in the Python and open source ecosystem today?
What do I enjoy more about? What do I enjoy more about it? Well, the community is incredible. Um, like I've most of my friends, some of my friends are Python community people. I go to a lot of conferences as well. It's really good to be able to have this
All right.
layer of interaction with people that, well, we're a bunch of weird people. They're united by the fact that we love a programming language, but we're different. It's the community aspect of it for sure.
So, and I noticed that you attended a lot of Python events around the world. And so, how that started exactly as a
Um,
speaker?
so how did I become a speaker? So I became a speaker by being part of the community. I joined Python Ireland was my first community. PyLadies Dublin actually was my first community here in Ireland. Then I joined Python Ireland, and after that, I joined EuroPython. And my first job was also by someone that recommended me from the Python community, was as developer advocate. And as you know, developer advocate job is basically about speaking at conferences and going to events to talk about different things. So that's how I started. And I wasn't a developer advocate I stopped being a developer advocate for a while, but now I'm back to it. So now I'm back to going to a lot of events. So it basically just comes with the job. But it's something that I love doing.
All right. So, what motivated you to move into developer relations and focus on open source communities? Yeah.
So my first job was as developer advocate. So I started in technology as a developer advocate. Then I ended up moving out of it for a while because I wanted to try other things. But I that was the way I started. And the Python community actually started before that. So the community work started before the developer advocacy work. But they kind of just started together, and that's how I'm here today.
All right. Let us check questions. If there is some questions here, no. Let me check. All right. So we are running after time, and I think there is some people will ask questions after this live. Yeah, and also okay. All right. So thank you so much, Laís, for your time, because you told me that you are traveling, right?
Yeah, I'm going to PyCon US tomorrow. I'm very excited about it.
All right. So safe traveling, Laís, and see you next time. Thank
Thank
you for your
you.
time. All
Thank
right.
you. Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Hope you learned something. Bye bye.